Yeah. But he will be the first person.
Um, Good afternoon. Um, Representatives of the government of Liberia and of the Forum for Agricultural Research, the African Development Bank, joining us online, the African Union Commission, and AMUCAO. Good afternoon to you. And since we are live streaming this session, I want to welcome all the participants that are joining us from wherever you are. My name is Agre Agumia. I'm the Director for Research and Innovation at the Forum for Agricultural Research in Africa. I want to warmly welcome you to this session, the session on the launch of the Africa Climate Smart Agriculture Framework consultation process. I would like to thank you for devoting this time to participate in this session. We have some opening remarks that will be made. We have two key presentations and a panel session. I would say just one or two things about the Africa Climate Smart Agriculture, which is the ACSAF. The ACSAF is envisaged as Africa's continent-wide instrument for mobilizing the relevant actors, including the African Union member states and the numerous non-state actors, including research organizations and other actors, the non-state actors. The Africa Climate Smart Agriculture Framework is envisaged to put forward a 10-year plan of action whose implementation will be tracked on a regular basis. We are thinking of a regular basis annually. We lack a common position on climate smart agriculture, and the ACSAF is designed to provide a mechanism for coordination of actions on climate smart agriculture. It is a framework of the African Union, so the FARA and the other partners have been commissioned by the African Union Commission to engage in this process. So for this session, the objective is to launch a year-long process of wide consultations aiming at elaborating an African fully owned framework that is the ACSAF. The ACSAF itself will be launched next year at COP28 in the United Arab Emirates. With that short introduction, allow me to invite the chairperson of the Forum for Agricultural Research in Africa, Dr. Alioune Fall, to make his opening remarks. After Dr. Fall, we will have opening remarks from representatives of the other co-organizers of this conference, of this session. The co-organizers include the government of Liberia, the Forum for Agricultural Research in Africa, the African Development Bank, the African Union Commission, and the AMUCAO, the African Ministerial Council on Water. So, Dr. Fall, please come and make your remarks. Thank you.
all participants to this afternoon meeting at the COP27 and all protocol observed. I want to welcome you to this important event, the launch of the African Climate Smart Agriculture Framework, ACSAF. Kindly accept my appreciation for the time and intellectual efforts you are providing towards the development of African agriculture. The organization of this event at the COP27 is symbolic of importance of halting the negative effects of climate change on the well-being of African this is coming down very. Yes, okay, now it's okay. The negative effect of climate change on the well-being of the African population and its agriculture sector, which currently engages the largest proportion of its inhabitants. I want to express my appreciation to different organizations that join hands to put this event together and have so far contributed to the development of the ASCAF. Oh, okay, the mic is not working. Yes, thank you. In the development of the AFCAS instrument, much gratitude goes to the government and people of Liberia for their great support. And the lead champion of this effort, Her Excellency Honorable General Millie Cooper, the Honorable Minister of Agriculture of Liberia, joining us online and ably represented by Professor Wilson Tepi, the head of Environmental Protect Agencies, EPA, of Liberia. The different research institutions in the 1CG, African Development Bank, the Africa Union Commission, the Academia 2063, the SROs and AFAS, and the AMCO and the NARS in the 55 Africa countries. Climate smart agriculture is an important subject matter, and there is no other time to give priority attention to getting the climate smart agriculture to deliver the change we need in Africa more than now. You will agree with me that the whole world is at crossroads on the very disturbance emerging from the changing climate. Africa has been at the end of the baton receiving the shocks which is associated with flood, drought, cold, heat spells at the wrong time, and incidents of new pests and disease, and so on and so forth. The effects of climate change of African agriculture is further exacerbated by the whole and systematic constraints that affect the functionality of the sector. While the concerted efforts are beginning to yield results, the sector lately got attacked indirectly by the global COVID-19 pandemic, food crisis, political crisis in Ukraine, and now the climate change. Climate smart agriculture was developed as a set of principles that will foster an adaptation or mitigation of the efforts of the changes in climate to ensure sustainable production and productivity of the agricultural sector. But this lovely approach is fast becoming everything and nothing due to systemic issues associated with the implementation at different levels. Key issues affecting the efficacy of climate smart agriculture yielding the desired effect is the obvious lack of coordination of different efforts at the continental level, the incongruent understanding of what the concept should deliver, and lack of matrices to measure progress. I have asked myself definitely a number of questions. What are technical, institutional, and organizational action required to actualize the climate smart agriculture in practical terms? What is a climate smart agriculture technology? And what can be drawn from all efforts as our joint deliverable from climate smart agriculture since FAO defined in Hague in 2010. These and many other questions require answers, but more importantly, is the need to begin to carry out actions that are in congruence with the agriculture component of the Africa Climate Change and Resilient Development Strategy and Action Plan 22-2032. As we deliberate and launch the process to elaborate the ACSAF 10 years after the Durban COP, what we call the Durban Plus 10, I will implore all to give a concerned effort to make the framework a practical instrument, not another strategy document that will remain on the shelf. Coming from the research of development fraternity, let us think about pragmatic implementation modalities and create funding modalities that will run this as an action that touches the last mile. Africa cannot wait. I hope and I have strong confidence in the efficiency of this process, and I believe that we will have a very fruitful deliberation, and I will be thanking you for your attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Thal. We have noted the importance of having a framework that is actionable and that will not remain on the shelf. Our next speaker is Professor Tape, the Director for the Environmental Protection Agency of the Government of Liberia. Professor Tape, you're welcome.
Good afternoon, and distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Let me stand on the existing protocol. Let me extend the greetings of His Excellency, the President of Liberia, His Excellency George Manneh. We are the government people of Liberia. I also want to specifically extend greetings from my colleague, the Minister of Agriculture, who could not be here, Honorable Cooper, who could not be here because of the workload that she has, and she is committed to this institution. The comments we have is that what this institution is doing, agriculture. We come from a country where 70% of the population is involved in agriculture. And as far as that is concerned, efforts we are making to promote agriculture will also consider our involvement in the NDC. The NDC that we have, agriculture is one of the 9 sectors that we have, where we believe if there's any particular change, any active climate resilient action has to be done, it has to be first and foremost in energy and, of course, agriculture. The discussion here is important, and we believe that together, whatever objective that is aimed at this setting, Liberia remains committed to the work of FARA, because we believe as an institution that organization is well meant to ensure that the goals that we follow as a country, as an agriculture country, will be achieved. We hope and we wish you a good deliberation and that the results will be good. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Tepa. Indeed, the Minister of Agriculture in Liberia is our key champion on the climate smart agriculture framework. Next, I will invite Dr. Rashid Mbazira. Dr. Mbazira is not here. Okay. We will proceed to the key presentations that are going to set the scene for subsequent panel discussion. At this juncture, I will invite Professor Tape again to make a key presentation on behalf of the Minister of Agriculture. The Minister is there. Oh, I am informed that the Minister is online, sorry. Very sorry. The Minister is online, so she will make the key presentation.
Can you hear me? Hello? Okay, Professor, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, yes.
Very good, excellent. Professor Wilson Tape, Director of the Environmental Protection Agency and Head of Delegation for the Republic of Liberia at COP27. Greetings, my brother. Thank you so much for taking up the slack for me. I appreciate it very much. And as you have stated, my workload is such that it could not permit me to travel to Sharm el-Sheikh, but I am with you in as much as technology allows today. Dr. Alioune Fall of FARA, Chairman of the Board of FARA, Dr. Yemi Akimbamijo, my dear brothers, Director of FARA, greetings to you, to all other executives and colleagues, fellow panelists, and distinguished guests. Please allow me to stand on any other protocols that have already been stated. First thing, I want to thank FARA and the African Union Commission for organizing this event. I also want to recognize the role played by the CGIAR and the African Development Bank in facilitating this discussion around the ACSAF, the African Climate Smart Agriculture Framework, and the plan of action that we hope to launch here today. The need for a common African position on climate smart agriculture is imperative. It's already been stated. This is not a new position for African nations. For example, when the Millennium Development Goals were derived, we were not in the room. And those goals mainly pertained to Africa. 15 years later, when Africa realized that the plans and goals that were being set for its development had not included its participation in the development of those goals, we took a much more robust stand in working towards a common African position for the Sustainable Development Goals. Since then, a common African position on all global platforms, frameworks, discussions has been more the norm than the exception. So it is with the ACSAF. Here we are with the impact of climate change knocking us down on this continent repeatedly, year after year. And Africa, who contributes the least to greenhouse gas emissions, is impacted disproportionately by droughts and floods, famines and pandemics, coastal erosion, and evaporation of our water bodies. Let me turn just for a minute to my own country, Liberia. We're home to more than half of the remaining intact tracts of the Upper Guinea Forest, West Africa's most important carbon sink and biodiversity hotspot. Here is Liberia, whose natural capital valuations are more than $35 billion. and with a carbon sequestration rate of more than 16 billion tons every year, and our greenhouse gas emissions are so low that our entire nation's emissions are less than some countries' per capita emissions. Here is Liberia with all this wealth, struggling to feed itself. And that is the crisis that has kept me in Liberia this week, because the food security, rising food prices, rising energy prices caused by the current events are impacting us. We already were not on track to meet any of the sustainable development goals by 2030, but our climate portfolio is among the best in the world. So my initial thoughts, and I've shared this with some of the panelists here, about climate smart agriculture was skeptical. I said, smart for who? Smart why? And I asked these questions not to be facetious or as a joke, because many times, as we saw with the MDGs, and as we averted with the SDGs, definitions are placed on things that impact our lives. They're placed from other perspectives than our own. We know that, for example, for climate smart agriculture, a lot of the definitions and the solutions that are being proposed are not proposed with us in mind. The heavy pollution caused by global agribusinesses is not our experience in Liberia and in most parts of Africa. When I see photos, for example, of regenerative agriculture in Western countries, I see my farm. I see other farms in Liberia. I see many smallholder farms. It's another way to say shifting cultivation, because we don't plant in the same area year after year for most of our food crops. And when I hear the EU trying to increase the number of family farms, their equivalent in Europe of our smallholder farms, and I think of what it means for us to have smallholder farmers, will the definitions of climate smart agriculture for family farm in Europe with an average valuation of more than $2 million, will it fit our smallholder farmers? I don't think so. I'm not even sure we're speaking the same language when we derive solutions for climate smart agriculture. If commercial agriculture, big farming as we know it, is done using chemicals and fertilizers that harm the planet and its people, and we in Liberia and in other parts of Africa have eschewed the use of the same chemicals and fertilizers, we barely mechanize. The ratio of tractor to population in Africa is lowest in the world. So when you derive climate smart solutions, are they the solutions that Africa needs? For us in Liberia, for us in Africa, climate smart solutions do not need to undermine our traditional systems. They should enhance them. Mechanization at smallholder level, using systems of aggregation of outputs for markets and sharing of inputs such as tractors and plows, simultaneously addressing our problems of youth unemployment. Those seem like climate smart solutions for us. We also, the innovations that we apply in agricultural production, in our food systems in Africa, are they part of the global climate smart discourse? Most of the time, that's not the case. But the ACSAF, the African Climate Smart agriculture framework offers us a unique opportunity. Unique in the agricultural sector, but not so unique when it comes to global development paradigms. It offers Africa, particularly sub-Saharan Africa, and I hold my own country, Liberia, an opportunity to shape the solutions to climate change and high greenhouse gas emissions, to shape those on our terms and given our realities, rather than the realities of other farming systems and agricultural production systems, other food systems that we don't even recognize. And so, yes, I'm so pleased and honored to be a champion of the ACSAF, an African climate smart agricultural framework that can take into consideration the reality of our lives as we are living them, that gives us an opportunity to canvas and go across the continent. Because here we are with the impact of climate change giving us droughts and floods, and knowing that even my reality in Liberia is different than the reality in the Horn of Africa, whose droughts are increasingly intense, or the Lake Chad Basin, where waterways, water bodies, life-giving water is reducing and denying that life to and livelihoods to the population in its environs. Africa's story is not one-dimensional. The CSA, Climate Smart Agriculture, will have different meanings for us. And that is what this framework, the launching of this framework, the one-year process that we want to undertake to get us to COP28 and come up with what is climate smart agriculture, what does it mean for Africa? Take into account our different realities, take into account the innovations that are being deployed across the continent, leverage what is working without getting trapped in definitions and directions that don't suit our reality. We are not the cause, the major contributors to greenhouse gas emissions. We are suffering the most from it. We have an opportunity with the ACSAF to define how we want our lives and the solutions that will work for us going forward for the next few decades. The process that is being undertaken of consultation across the regions of Africa to come up with a common African position begins today. And for this, I want to thank already those who have brought us here, FARA, the champions, the African Union Commission, African Development Bank, the One CGIAR movement, the RU Forum, our universities, our farmers, our governments, who have all contributed to finding these solutions. These are preoccupying us. We're trying to grow our agricultural sector. We're trying to feed ourselves. Climate smart agriculture must have meaning for all of us and must be defined by us. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for affording me this opportunity to speak with you today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Janine Cooper, the champion of the ACSAF. Thank you. It couldn't be said better. We need a common framework. We have not had one, and our organization and mobilization of the African actors around climate smart agriculture has suffered as a result. So that is the significance of the ACSAF. At this point, I would like to invite a representative of the African Development Bank, Mr. Randolph Colley. He is joining us online. He's already there. Randolph, the floor is yours. Okay. I am advised that the African Development Bank representative is the manager for production, climate change, and he is Dr. Lawali Galba. He is already with us. Lawali, you can go ahead. You can unmute and make your remarks. Thank you. Lawali, you have the floor. Can you hear us? Okay. We will proceed if we cannot get him right now. We will proceed and get a key presentation on the emerging framework. So this is the work that has taken place this year to put together the elements of the framework that we will, over the next year, complete and get consultations and input from all the actors. Dr. Yemi Akinbamijo, the Executive Director of FARA, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, Dr. Agre Agumia. Your Excellency, Honorable Janine Mele Cooper, Honorable Minister for Agriculture for the Government of Liberia, and the Liberian delegation ably led by Professor Tape, we are very honored that you are here in full force. Dr. Aliun Fall, my board chair, distinguished colleagues from the CGIAR, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure to welcome you here in this very august occasion where we elaborate a little bit more on the African Climate Smart Agriculture Framework. We're so honored to have you with us. So I'm going to run through a few slides just to intimate us a little bit with the core elements of the ACSAF, the African Climate Smart Agriculture Framework. As has been already commented, I'd like to also pay compliments to the very, very bold statements and commitment made by Honorable Janine Mele Cooper, and in accepting to be the champion of ACSAF. This is extremely important for us and a great booster, a great encouragement for all of us. So what is the ACSAF all about? The ACSAF is the African Climate Smart Agriculture Framework. And a little bit about how it all started. So in 2021, we had the Food Systems Summit, and we wanted to have a pathway. Oh, thank you very much. I think that will be helpful. To have a pathway for the Sustainable Development Goals. And in that context, I think I need to move here also. We have the urgency to re-engage with the food and nutrition security agenda for us to be able to have, meet the Sustainable Development Goals and all the related social and environmental goals. As we know, that if we fail on food, then all the other goals are also likely to fail. But we are in a context of 4 elements. We have the food crisis, the price crisis, the climate change crisis, and political crisis, plus the COVID crisis. So these are all synergistically challenging our food production system, rendering the continent even more vulnerable. And in order to avert this scenario, it becomes important for us to deploy appropriate science and technologies to be able to mitigate all of these challenges if Africa will be successful in its food and nutrition security elements. We're very happy to have Dr. Claudia Sadov just walking in, the Executive Managing Director of the 1CG. Thank you very much. So, we need to deploy the appropriate science and the technologies and innovations for climate change in order to be able to have appropriate modalities of mitigating these scenarios. So in order for us to build the resilience that we are looking for, it is important for us to ensure that we align ourselves with the Agenda 2063 of the African Union, with the Malabo Declarations, and with the CGIAR 2024, the Science, Technology and Innovation Strategy for Africa. But as I said earlier on, we are extremely vulnerable. And if you look at the 2 figures on the screen, this is where we were in the early 60s, and we have shifted very, very badly. And this is actually what is being described in the new parlance, what is being described as a climate crisis or a climate emergency. It couldn't be said louder. So when you look at another index of our vulnerability, the crop yields, the impact is that crop yield will decline by up to 22% by 2050 if nothing is done. Now, this is a scenario we are confronted with when the continent should double its production using half the resources as much as possible. And population is also on the increase. But then, what is ACSAF bringing on the table to address this scenario? Again, ACSAF came off the back of COP26, wherein we looked ahead and said, from 10 years ago, when we had COP in Africa, in South Africa, in Durban, what did not happen, or what did happen? But the intention is to make ACSAF to bring a coalition of the willing that strives to leverage on the power of partnership and strategic alliance to put the climate smart agenda or climate smart initiative into practical use in a coherent form to be able to deliver the African agriculture we want. But I'm also eager to say what ACSAF is not. So it's not a new organization. It is not a social movement. It's not a pressure group. And it is not a document or another theory. It is simply, as I said, a coalition of technical partners who have the capacity and the mandate to use science to mitigate the impact of climate change in a pragmatic manner. So we would like to see how we engage ourselves in a mutual accountability frame to report on our progress, to track this progress on a biannual basis. And I also would like to say we already started this in the SPAC conference last September in Accra. The SPAC conference is Science Partnership for the Agriculture Conference. So what are the essential elements of these strategy? First is to have a common African position and harmonized climate change strategies. And this is actually based on the African Union Climate Change and Resilient Development Strategy. So we seek to strengthen the adaptive and mitigative capacities to enhance resilience and reduce vulnerabilities. Two key elements. And then to have an effective institutional and human capacity to be able to implement these strategies in a systematic manner. Right now, a lot is happening, but we do not have the modality of tracking, modality of actually monitoring what is happening. But ACSAF will help us to sing from the same hymn sheet. And then we have the soil health and water management through science and innovation. And then we hope that this will help us to have a coordinated manner to increase financing. I dare say again that all of this is to help us to respond to the strategy that was put in place by the heads of state and government of the African Union in February 2022. Now, what is the rationale? Going deeper, we need to properly coordinate in a systematic manner the different initiatives. We need to strengthen and track accountability. This is what we probably lost out from Durban to Sharm el-Sheikh. Because looking backwards, we really don't have a one-stop place where we can say, this is how much we've achieved. Although a lot has been done, but we need to have a coordination mechanism. And that's what FARA is putting on the table with all these partners. We need to ensure that we have good stewardship, learning, peer learning, strategic planning, and then to facilitate scaling of success stories with minimal transboundary disturbances. We will need to then facilitate the partnership to deliver effective climate-smart agriculture strategies where they matter, and then to chart the direction for the continental development of climate-smart agriculture. We would also want to foster the active knowledge management. We already initiated a very strong element of knowledge management for agricultural development last December. And then we would like to improve policy design and decision making, and finally, mobilize resources and accelerate scaling. Now, the logic intervention of the ACSAF, I'll quickly run through it. On top here is to have what we're dealing with in terms of constraints, the poor progress, the inconsistent technology generation, the lack of a continental voice, the poor coordination efforts, and the framework, lack of the framework for stewardship. And that's what ACSAF is putting on the table. And the interventions are stakeholder engagement, joint planning, prioritization, stewardship, and all the elements under it. Then the flagship will be referring to soil health, water management, climate information system, and the climate smart agriculture farm enterprise. So in a nutshell, this is what it looks like. Yeah. We also have a document, the vision document. Can you help me with that? No. Oh, you have them outside. Okay. So we've got some flyers that would like to leave with you. We've got these flyers. Please feel free and welcome to help yourself to them. They are just outside after this event. And then, what is the approach that we are following, and what are the activities that we will be looking at? ACSAF as a framework will be hosted by competent organization with a mandate for forming this coalition of actors and it's really a broad coalition, and to also have a host organization that will use its own resources and fundraise to support its activities. These actions will be driven by a cohort of partners, and you will see them later at the end of my presentation. The value add of ACSAF is that we will be the coordinating agency for climate smart agriculture. We heard it from the minister. She said that climate smart agriculture must have an African definition. It must have an African meaning. It must be driven to respond to African challenges. And that's what ACSAF is all about. And then ACSAF will strive to report to a higher continental level on progress made and on the Climate Smart Agriculture Alliance with various strategies and action plans. And this could run on an annual or biennial basis for Stewardship Forum in Africa. And lastly, ACSAF partnership will be open to willing organizations to be able to facilitate continental benefit from synergies and complementarities. So the action plan is quite broad, and these are the elements that we have in the action plan. We have regional consultations led by SROs and 1CG. We have the roundtable conference, 1CGIAR FARA roundtable conference, biennial conference led by FARA, the African Common Position on African agri-food systems. So it's all there. And so these are the elements that we think we will be running the ACSAF with. Okay, I need to move on. I see many people interested in this, but you also have it in the document that is outside. So in terms of partnership, the core group will consist of partners from the research fraternity, and this is why FARA is at the forefront of this. So we have the African Union Commission, the RECs, the SROs, the NAS, and all the stakeholders. We have the 1CG, AMCAO, AMSEN, UNEP, all of these, Republic of Egypt, and of course, the government of Liberia, from where our chief champion, Minister Janine Mili-Cooper, is coming from, and the big delegation from Liberia in the House. Then we have Agnes, FAO, and all the others that will be supporting the work that we are doing. So this is all I have to say. I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Yemi Akinbamejo, for giving us an idea of what ACSAF is and what it is not. The value add of ACSAF, I think, has been well elaborated, and everybody will be involved in elaborating in more detail what the ACSAF should contain. In addition, there will be over the next year, we will have many dialogues, many engagements, and the idea being that at COP28, when the ACSAF is launched, we actually come with a common position. Other regions do that, and it's high time that Africa also does the same. We are going to shift gears. Okay, thank you. I'm told that the African Development Bank is now online. Dr. Lawali Gaba will ask him to make his remarks. After that, I will invite my colleague, Dr. Wole Fatumbi, to come and moderate a panel discussion. Dr. Lawali, you have the floor. Can you please unmute? Dr. Lawali? Okay, we'll proceed. We'll proceed. I'll invite my colleague, Dr. Wole. Dr. Wole is a senior cluster leader, and he is within FARA the focal person on ACSAF.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hagri, and good evening once again. I mean, the momentum is building, and we are getting on. It's been very interesting, and the discussion is great. I will quickly introduce my panelists, and those that are in the hall, I'll bring them to this exalted seat here. Trust me, I have high-level individuals, first-class brain, to discuss the issues today. Of course, we know that we have the champion of ACSAF already, Her Excellency, the Minister of Agriculture in Liberia, and she's the first panelist. The next person I want to bring up is Dr. Mark Smith. A round of applause for Dr. Smith. He is the Director General of International Water Management Institute, a member of the CGIAR, and a core member still of the evolving 1CG. You're welcome, Dr. Smith. Online, Dr. Laoli Gaba. Dr. Laoli Gaba works for the, is a divisional manager at the African Development Bank. And I truly wish that we will get the voice of Dr. Laoli this time to contribute significantly to this panel discussion. Okay, I haven't introduced the three individuals. There are other high-level individuals in the audience, and if question goes in the direction of their competence, we will not hesitate to ask them. Dr. Claudia has informed me that she's not going to be in the panel, but she's going to come up later in the program. But if questions go in your direction, Dr. Claudia, we will definitely come back to you. Now, these issues that we want to discuss is really very vital. And I'm going to start from Her Excellency, the Minister of Agriculture in Liberia. Your Excellency, I must thank you again, just like every other person here listening to you, and they are full of gratitude for your effort championing this great model, do I call it, and a change. Africa is at the verge of change, and the change is actually imminent, and we really need to move on with it. But my first question to you, Your Excellency, is climate smart agriculture has been there for about 2 decades now. And then we've been doing this, we've been doing that. A lot of work has been done, you know. But Your Excellency, are you satisfied with the spate of growth that we have derived so far from climate smart agriculture? If you are satisfied, please let us know. But if you are not satisfied, what other things will you like to see going forward? What is your own vision for a vital framework as ACSAF? Your Excellency, you have the floor, and we'll be glad to get your response. Thank you.
Thank you so much, moderator. And you are right. But sometimes these processes on climate smart agriculture begin, you say, for the last 20 years. It didn't gain prominence until more recently, and coming up, it looked at agriculture from the perspective of mitigation. That is to say, reducing greenhouse gases. It did not look at agriculture from the perspective of adaptation, and these are two dichotomies that we have in the climate change discourse. where the bulk of what African food systems look like. Am I satisfied with the pace? No. But the best time to begin working on this framework and developing a common African position on climate smart agriculture was yesterday. The second best time is today, and that's what we're doing now. So the first thing we have to do is to ensure that we have a definition that works for us. What does climate smart mean? What does it mean for the herder in Kenya? What does it mean for the farmer in Uganda? What does it mean for the farmer, the fisherman in the Volta region? What does it mean for a farmer in Liberia? What does it mean for any of our food producers, any of our agricultural practitioners? What does it mean? So we have to have that definition. It's been going on for 20 years, we know. There's multiple different things out there, multiple different initiatives. We have to find the initiative that is working for us, or find a way to make those multiple ones speak with our one voice as Africans. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. I think that touches a very delicate part of me. And that's going to make me ask you the next line of question. In your presentation, you made mention of the need to have this definition that fits different dimensions. And I understand that FAO defined what climate smart agriculture should be in the year 2010, published. And all of us flowed into it. Your Excellency, looking at the different conflicting models that are coming up on the continent. I've been here for 4 days, and my interest is actually to listen to the social, what do you call it? The social movements. A lot of social movement is here. And everyone wants Africa agriculture, farming system, food system to move in the direction of their interest. Of course, we've heard about agroecology movement, and that is really very strong. Mm-hmm. I mean, regenerative agriculture has been very strong. I mean, food sovereignty, believe that it is all. I saw a group yesterday that said we must not eat meat anymore. And all of these, they are looking in this direction. There is also the other group that have scientific evidence, and they have their own opinion. They are pushing us, and Africa agriculture must move in different direction. Your Excellency, what direction will you recommend that Africa should go if we are going to be free? I mean, before you answer me, let me say this to you also, that in your presentation, you said that external models will not fit Africa possibly because of the socio-cultural dimensions. I mean, the natural resource domain. So what model is going to fit us? Your Excellency, we would like your response to this.
Well, thank you very much, moderator. No, it's not that I have a model that's going to fit Africa. That is the purpose of embarking on 1 year of consultations to hear from. I mean, Africa is not one country. It's not one ecology. It's not one food system. It's a wide variety of different perspectives, and that is why the approach that the ACSAF is taking to canvas the situation and understand and package it together for one time. Yes, there's the competing interests, and you can't hear your ears. I know. They put the pressure on you from all sides. But there is no substitute for actually consulting Africans, and the responsibility to consult Africans and derive a position for Africa. It's our responsibility. We can't ask somebody else, oh, you define that climate smart agriculture for yourself. It doesn't take me into consideration, so you have to go and redefine it. We have to redefine it for ourselves. And we have to be the ones that will take the lead in this. And that's what this platform, this whole event is all about. I don't have a model. I have the model that fits Liberia, maybe, and even that, we canvassed it when we were doing our food systems consultations last year. But food systems is not the only part about climate smart agriculture. 40% of our GDP in Liberia depends on agriculture. Arguably, other countries have similar amounts of agricultural dependence for their economies, but everybody's story is different. And so we have to be able that we can meld those voices, we can blend them into one common position. The common position is not just one answer. The common position, if you look at our common position for the SDGs and the common position that define the 2063 agenda, that is the way that we need to go. That consultative way, and come up with something that's representative of the diversity that is this continent. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. I mean, this is excellent. It's brilliant. It is first class. But I'm not still going to allow you to go, although I will allow you to go. I want to ask you. I want to ask you, but I don't want to answer now. When I come back to you, you give me the answer. Two issues are very topical. Increase fertilizer use. Go agroecology. Go solely organic. Your Excellency, where do you stand? We are not taking answer now. We'll come back to you. Thank you, Your Excellency. I'm going to go to Dr. Mark Smith. Yeah, Dr. Mark Smith, thank you very, very much for coming around here. And I am happy that you lead the issues of water at the global level, working with the CG, generating technology, models, and pushing it through. Water is a major trouble. We need it to produce. Then we have drought. Sometimes they will say we have El Nino year in some part of Africa. Water is leading to most of the crises we have on the continent, increasing desertification, no water, and we keep moving. Then suddenly, about 5 countries in Africa now are suffering intensely from flood.
Too much water.
They're suffering intensely from flood. I know, but I don't want you to say that, oh, we need to do drainage and we need to increase, what do you call it, irrigation. Those are common answers. What are the unique things that is preventing us from having this in Africa? And how do we navigate this quagmire? It's been there for decades. How do we navigate it and come out of it? I'll be glad to get your response. Thank you.
That's a very big question.
Yeah. It is meant for big minds like you.
I'll do my very best. I want to first just acknowledge what the Honourable Minister has said in terms of the importance of taking a breath and defining and thinking through and talking through what is it that we really mean by climate smart agriculture. It's a very easy thing to say. It's a very easy thing, it's a very logical thing to say. We need our agriculture to be climate smart. And I think it's absolutely right, not just for climate smart agriculture in Africa, but for climate smart agriculture generally, to go through the process that has been outlined today to work out what exactly are we aiming for if we're going to be climate smart. And I, as you've pointed out, I'm a water enthusiast. I can't help myself. My colleagues from CG, they get very bored of listening to me talk about water. And the reason for that is because water connects. It connects it connects to the economy, it connects people to the economy, it connects people to ecosystems, it connects to development, to sectors, it connects agriculture to resilience, it connects agriculture to adaptation. And it also connects farmers to climate change, right? So any climate smart agriculture has to be water smart. So I'm really encouraged, really impressed to see that one of the flagships in ACSAF, excuse me, will be water management.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's missing. You just outlined why it's so important, floods and drought. But sometimes when people talk about climate smart agriculture, it's missing because there's a blind spot there. There's a blind spot between the way we think about food systems and the way we think about water systems. And it strikes me that this process that you're setting out on for 1 year of consultations leading up to the COP28 is a perfect time and a perfect process to really overcome that blind spot and help us to really connect food systems and water systems in very meaningful ways. And those are going to be important lessons also for the CG, right? And we're going to learn from this process as well. And what we'll find when we do that is, yes, just I'm getting to your question, and I'll make my answer very, very short. What we're going to find when we do that is there are a whole range of technological and innovative things we can do. But alongside that, we have to put those technologies and innovation and the knowledge that we gain from the science, we have to put that into institutions at all levels that can deploy it. We have to put it into decision making about investment. We have to put it into decision making about how we overcome those last mile hurdles. And then we can be water smart and climate smart, I hope.
Thank you very much, but I'm not still going to let you go. You know why? We are here. And I remember that in 2008, just here in Sharm el-Sheikh, the presidents within African Union Commission, they gave some responsibility to AMCAO. It's unfortunate that I did not see the director of AMCAO, but the Sudan representative of AMCAO is here. Just listening attentively to this. AMCAO was given that responsibility to get it done. I mean, you've been here maybe for 2 weeks now. This place is supposed to be desert. No water at all. But can you see how comfortable we are here? I'm sure Dr. Yemi will be very happy that that is the power of science. So it's a world of possibility. Dubai also did not have access to water except the sea. But today, they are able to navigate their problem through science. And we're able to do it. I know that only 6% of the arable land in Africa is irrigated. 14% in Latin America and 37% in Asia. I mean, when we pick that of the West, the Europe and the West, we'll marvel that almost all lands, agricultural land, have one access or the other. How can Africa get to that place? And I think that is the question for you and I, technocrats, decision maker. But more important to you, Dr. Smith, what partnership is needed to get this done? Like the minister said, we can't wait. This should have been done yesterday. I mean, what partnership do we need? How will HILMI contribute to ACSAF if ACSAF will have the power to drive this? What will be your gain? Because I'm sure HILMI is not going to come into a partnership without certain things to contribute and certain things to gain. We're looking at you on the issue of drainage and irrigation. Can you respond to this question quickly so that we can move on?
I want to raise two things.
Yes.
So
Please go ahead.
So I want to raise two things. In terms of partnerships, what we need to do is bring together. One of the things that we've been working on in IMI is farmer-led irrigation, right? So bottom-up processes of meeting needs of communities. So what we need to look at is partnerships that can overcome barriers to those processes of expansion of investment in those kinds of systems and the capacities that you need to implement them and be successful in implementing. So we need effective value chains. We need access to finance and access to credit for people who are vulnerable, people who are marginal, for people who are excluded from those systems, for women, for youth, for entrepreneurs. We need to catalyze and promote entrepreneurship that can drive those systems and back those up with good technical knowledge and innovation, and do that at scale. And we need partnerships with the private sector, with financing institutions to take that to scale. The second thing I want to mention is, and it was on one of the slides that Yemi showed, about water dialogues to support the ACSAF process. And that's part of a dialogue process that at IMI we've been building in order to take us from here in Sharm el-Sheikh into the UN 2023 Water Conference. We call that Transformative Futures for Water Security. And that is intended to create high ambition missions for water security, and to bring together around those missions the partnerships and the coalitions that you need to take them forward, to catalyze real action to take them forward. So if we can align that to what you're doing with ACSAF, that will be great. That will be a real win for us too. So I look forward to doing that. And we're so pleased that we're doing that in partnership with AMCAO, and that it will contribute to supporting AMCAO and the dynamic leadership that the African water ministers bring to these issues, and will bring into that UN 2023 conference and take that through into Dubai next year. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Dr. Smith. I think this is a brilliant summation, and I've been able to get the commitment of ILMI to be part of AMCAO and to drive the issue of water. We're looking forward to good solution. I want to know if Dr. Laoli is on there and we can hear his voice now. Dr. Laoli, are you there? Okay. Well, I'll come back to the Honorable Minister, and thank you for your time with us. Dr. Smith, in your statement, you mentioned access to funding. And I've heard that from almost all sections that I've attended today, access to funding. And I was joking with someone in a dinner meeting yesterday that we don't have access to the money. Who is keeping the money? That's in a lighter mood. If we know who is keeping the money, then we can go there and ask. Your Excellency, let me ask you, and I want to put you on the spot on the issue of financing climate-smart agriculture. What guidance will you give to the organizers of ACSAF on how to navigate this trouble of financing? We know fully that without finance, it will just be another talk show. I'll be glad to get your response, Your Excellency. Thank you. You are muted.
Oh, I thought you were addressing Dr. Smith. Okay, thank you. I think for Africa, we have been beating one horse, which is to get payments from the developed nations, financing, there's not one horse, several horses, trying to get them to live up to the commitments that they're making to support Africa in its climate objectives, in being able to withstand the impact of climate change. From 20 years ago, I was working on the second drought in Kenya and in the Horn of Africa. Over the span of my time in Eastern Africa, I think I clocked 7 droughts over 17 years. And each one, 7 major droughts. Wow. Droughts where people die for lack of water. And then there's all the minor ones where animals die, people are hungry, and aid has to come in. 7 major ones. And you look at, so we were already working 20 years ago when you said climate smart agriculture. For 20 years we've been talking, that's what Dr. Yemi said. 20 years ago, Africa was already facing the impact of climate change, climate variability, all of the things, and we were shouting at that time. The aid was coming as humanitarian aid, which is a completely different thing. It's not the one that addresses the root causes of your problems. And so we're here at COP27, like we were at COP26 and COP25 and COP15 and COP, go back to 1, with the same story, financing. Of course, there are charted avenues that we are adhering to. We have the nationally determined contribution, we've costed it, we're presenting it, we get patted on the back, thank you, it's very good, you're going to reduce emissions, etc., etc. It goes back to the mitigation, adaptation discourse, which is self-defeating for Africa, really. We need to be able to withstand the impacts and consequences of climate change. We need to be able to feed ourselves and to continue to be champions of the world's ecosystems, which we are. We need to be able to do all of that. So we have to get a little bit innovative. Maybe innovative is a strong word. We have to think outside of the box, because banging on the door of the developed nations and trying to shame them into giving us what we need, well, it has some work that's there. But we do have these climate assets. And we have, if we have unique ways of looking at, we have to think how we look at those assets. How do we value them? There are systems for ecosystem valuation. There are systems for wealth accounting, natural capital accounting. They're put in place selectively, and those who clamor the most will get them, or those who look like they're playing ball in the best way will get them. Africa needs to get them, and we need to get them according to our needs, and we have to address our root causes of the consequences. We need to be able to address those at the very causative level. Why are we having all of these droughts? Okay, we can't maybe stop the droughts from coming. We can't stop the floods from coming, but we can build the systems of resilience that can help us to withstand them, that can help us to thrive, even though the droughts come, even though the floods come. You mentioned Egypt, Sharm el-Sheikh. I was recently in Israel. There are technologies available today. Financing them the way that we're doing now, taking on more debt, official development assistance, even sometimes at concessionary rates, the rates are too high. The developed nations can borrow at 0, 0.5, 1%. We're borrowing at 4 to 8% to finance the very things that we did not cause, or to finance being able to feed ourselves. So these are conundrums we have to look at. We have to be able to leverage our wealth. and our natural capital. We have to be able to value our ecosystem services and take those as commodities and say, and this is what my president, Dr. George Badewia, has proposed, set up trading mechanisms that reflect us, that meet our needs, where we can go to for finance without being put in straitjackets that suit somebody else's purposes and keeps us still poor and hungry. So what those look like, again, I go back to the fact that we need to consult, because different countries are trying different things and things are working in this space. I hear it all the time. Have you seen Gabon? Did you see what Cameroon did in this? Senegal, have you looked at what they're doing? Kenya is doing so and so and so. Let us consult. When we consult, we can come up with these innovative financing solutions for climate smart agriculture, but for being able to feed ourselves and meeting our sustainable development goals. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. I think I want to start drawing the curtain gradually. We've gathered a lot of great and good information, but it's not fair if I don't give you opportunity to raise one or two comments. I mean the audience. So if you have one you want to raise, please let me quickly see your hand. I've seen one, I've seen two, I've seen three, I've seen four. Okay, Dr. Yemi, you are, oh, thank you very much, Dr. Agri. So, number one, you know your number. Please be very quick. You have a quarter of a minute to ask all your questions.
Yes, I don't know if I'm allowed to ask a question to Dr. Amy.
Yeah, you can ask anyone here. Dr. Yemi is here.
Thank you.
The minister and Dr. Smith, Dr. Claudia. Just feel very free.
Thank you very much. My name is Moleka Mosisi. I'm coming from the University of Kisangani in DR Congo. Yes, listening to Dr. Yemi, he said that from Durban to Sharm el-Sheikh, there is little to be shown. Yeah. And what makes him optimistic now? That is the first question. The second question is, I was struggling, listening to him, I was struggling to differentiate ACSAF from CADEP. Okay. He spoke about the difference, what is ACSAF and what is not ACSAF. But my question is, if you can elaborate a bit, what is the difference between ACSAF and CADEP? Thank you.
Yeah, you will surely do that, please. Let's be quick, You have quarter of a minute.
Hello everyone, my name is Aziz Salau from Nigeria, the founder of Community Action for Food Security Initiative. So I want to quickly agree with what the Excellency said, and I think this is where ACSA really needs to come in, because our problem is different from what is really happening in the West, and we need to tackle it. So ACSA, is there a way ACSA can actually be sincerely work in different countries in Africa, because the politicians and our leaders are not willing to, they don't have the goodwill to actually make this thing work. But then, can we work together? It's an alliance. I see that we really don't have youth-led organizations as part of the alliance. Is it possible for us to also have youth-led organizations? We worked with AFAS. We work with AFAS on the CADEP X4X project. But then, this is an alliance, new one. How can we actually make it really work, where ACSAF would be like a focal point, challenging different governments in their different countries to actually have their goodwill to make climate smart agricultural practices, financial frameworks really work? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Question 3 beside him, Dr. Agri.
Thank you very much. My name is Abdulkarim Majid. I'm a journalist from Nigeria. I report for Premium Times. Okay. And I'm delighted to be here listening to all the views and talk around the food system so far. For me, I've reported largely around some of the climate smart practices that some of Nigerian farmers are adopting. When the issue of water came on board, I remember doing a report where I saw some farmers cultivating water for. Yeah, I will ask the question, please, sir. I just want to create this. Where I saw some farmers cultivating water during the rainy season in order to be able to withstand the drought during the dry season. I'm just thinking in my head if it's something that can be created across rural communities in order to help them navigate through the dry season. But having said that, while we are calling for climate smart practices for the farmers to adopt, I also observe that we have some of the big guys who are actually promoting what we call monocropping system of farming. I don't know, some of them are making pledges to say they want to support rural farmers to go climate smart. Okay. But they are also funding monocropping system of farming. Yeah. Is that the way to go? Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, the last question. Oh, that's Dr. Yemi. So, Dr. Yemi, quickly make your intervention, and I will give Dr. Smith opportunity to respond to water-related comments he made, and I will take last comment from Her Excellency. She's quite busy. She needs to move into other issues of the state.
Your Excellency, Honorable Minister, this question is for you, and I really want to quote you. In September, Your Excellency, you were with us in Accra, and you alluded to a phrase of drinking soup with a fork. Now, for 10 years running, the leadership of the continent congregate in COP. I am struggling, and I'm responding to Professor Moleka, my dear friend. Moleka, I'm responding to you. We are struggling to find, like here in Sharm el-Sheikh, what are the hot issues that the ministers of agriculture, our leaders, what are they bringing to Sharm el-Sheikh, and what are we taking back home? Or are we repeating the same cycle as we did in Paris, as we did in Cancun, as we did in Durban, as we did in Morocco? I'm struggling to find a caucus of which the leadership is saying we are coming to Sharm el-Sheikh with this decision following the ministerial meeting that happened in Gabon. But I haven't seen a consolidated move of what will be taken out of Sharm el-Sheikh. I'm happy to take ACSAF away based on the guidance we're receiving, but what are our leaders telling us so that we can tap into this guidance and leadership? Otherwise, we will continue to drink our soup, not even with a teaspoon, but with a fork.
Okay, but, I can quickly use this. This is alive now, okay? That's quite nice, Dr. Yemi. You have given your question to the Honorable Minister. Okay, and you have a load of questions to respond to. So what I'll do is to ask Dr. Smith to respond to the water issue there, then Dr. Yemi.
I will be extremely brief. Certainly, water storage, integrating and innovating around water storage and how we scale that up as we go forward in climate smart or water smart agriculture is a key issue that we want to bring into these missions that I talked about out of our dialogue. So let's look for ways to engage in that. And just to address what your neighbor said, in our dialogue process, we have a really interesting mechanism for working with youth on that too, and building alliances with youth. So.
Okay. Thank you very much. Dr. Yemi.
Oh,
to the
okay.
questions.
Hello. 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 Okay. Now, to your question, very brief and direct. ACSAF is not competing with CADEP. ACSAF is providing the scientific support in a coordinated manner within CADEP. Remember that we are a technical arm of the African Union. So we are not in competition or in conflict with CADEP. We are supporting CADEP. The whole issue about ACSAF, it's not a movement and it's not an alliance. Let me tell my Nigerian brothers, ACSAF is not a movement. It's not a pressure group. ACSAF is a coalition of technical partners who hold mutual accountability in providing scientific support in a coordinated manner, trackable manner, and reporting to ourselves over the next 10 years how we keep Africa climate proof in a technical sense.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yemi. Your Excellency, I'm quickly coming back to you. I have less than 3 minutes to close. So kindly respond to Dr. Yemi's question and give your closing comment. Thank you. You can go and sit down, Dr. Yemi. Yeah.
Thank you. It was not so much as a question as an endorsement of my previous statements, which characterizes the developmental approach to the projectized approach to African development as akin to drinking soup using a fork. You will get some in your mouth, but it's very, very, very slow, takes a long time, and is very unsatisfying. And that is the way that we have also approached these the Conference of Parties. I say, and I think, my opinion, is that it's because we were not united. When you are united around a common position and a common direction, you are not distracted by all of the different acronyms and movements. And, you know, when I'm going on climate smart agriculture, then I realize, and Dr. Smith just mentioned, water smart agriculture. There's also the one they call nutrition smart agriculture. All of those are distractions. We're looking at agricultural production systems that work for us, that are sustainable, that don't harm the environment, that improve the lives of our people, that improves our planet, and that brings prosperity for all. That's what we're looking for. So you want to call it water smart, nutrition smart, food systems, all of these, they're all dimensions of the same thing. And that's what the ACSAF, when I say we need to define for ourselves what climate smart agriculture is, it has water smart in there. It has nutrition smart in there. And you don't hear the West talking about nutrition. It's only us. Because we're the ones who are deemed to be malnourished. We are the ones who are deemed to be stunted. We are the ones who are deemed to be developmentally challenged because our national development is challenged because we don't have all these right systems in place. So what exactly is it that Africa needs to be able to undertake its agriculture, to be able to feed itself, to be able to develop its economies and grow and prosper? That is what this is all about. So, you know, not wanting to place blame on anybody and say, oh, we've come here, we've spent a lot of time here, but we're coming up. The best solution is for us to come together and have a common position. That way, we have something, a goal that we're all working towards, and we can measure our progress year on year.
Mm. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for all these good opinion. Time is not on our side. We have too many things to still talk about, but we need to draw the curtain at this point. I'm going to call Dr. Claudio Sadov, the Executive Managing Director of the One CGIAR, to give us very brief closing remark. If you want to come here, please feel free. And if you are fine there, you are fine.
In fact, because we are working on borrowed time, I'm not even going to walk to the podium. Let me just say this. Madam Minister, Excellency Chair, Executive Director, all those gathered. Last week here at COP27, I was able to join an event on the Africa Union's climate change and resilient development strategy and action plan. And that was so exciting because, just as the minister has said, it was an effort of Africa to put forward a coherent vision that all of us who wish to work together can follow and align with. And what's so exciting about ACSAF is that it is the operationalization of this strategy. It is that alignment, it is that taking of action, it is that implementation. And watching the scoping study that has already been undertaken that showed such a tremendous array of the various technologies and innovations that are available to Africa gives us great hope that together in partnership with the clear vision that is being provided by Africa's leadership and bringing together some of the key institutions working towards sustainable development and resilient agriculture on the continent, the AU, the governments of every country, the African Development Bank, FARA, etc. We have the opportunity, and CGIAR is so proud to be a part of that. We have the opportunity to work together, align our efforts, and move toward the vision that we've heard here today. So my message is partnership, and together the raising of finance, always a perennial issue. 1.7% of climate finance goes to smallholder agriculture. That is much too low a percentage for such a highly vulnerable population. We will all work against that and together join Yemi and this incredible group of dedicated professionals to work toward Africa's vision for climate adaptation and sustainable, resilient development. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So let me express our appreciation to the Honorable Minister. Thank you for your time today and the knowledge you have given. Dr. Mark Smith, we are very grateful. Dr. Claudia, you are simply the best. Thank you. And please keep it up. We don't know if Dr. Laoli Gaba, definitely it is a technology-related problem. We thank you too. Then I want to express great thanksgiving to the board chair of FARA, Dr. Halil Fall, for making time, traveling all the way. Dr. Yemi, thank you for the great leadership. Dr. Hagri, you are simply great. And to every one of us, you are the best. I believe that we will get there someday, and shortly we will deliver the Africa we want. On that note, I bring this meeting to a close and wish you the best of the day. Bye.